Hello everyone and welcome to this week's behind the scenes devlog video, and this week is going to be a pretty busy week. I've got a devlog video, a tutorial video, I need to release the code and the game to the Patreon supporters on Friday, and I've also got a bit more to do on the entity system that I was working on last week, and I also want to have a look into improving the 3D mouse picker. Unfortunately, it's actually already Wednesday because on Monday and Tuesday I just, for some reason, was just lacking in motivation. And I tried to get some stuff done, but it just wasn't happening, which happens sometimes. I think it was because I'd been working on such a big topic last week and I pretty much finished it, but I still had a couple of little loose ends, boring little things to do to finish it off. And sometimes it's a bit hard to find motivation to do those boring last bits of a topic instead of moving on to the next topic. But today I'm feeling much more energized and ready to go, so hopefully I'm going to make some good progress. This morning I've mainly just been doing planning, so I've been planning out all the gameplay in Equilinox in a lot more detail than I had before, just to make sure that I know how everything's going to work and what I have still left to do. Also, I've been planning out those final last few loose ends to do with the entity system that I was working on last week, and these are mainly to do with loading and saving resources using the cache system. It is 12 o'clock now, and for the rest of the morning I've just been working on the cache system. I've had to change a few things around because basically there are going to be two types of entities, or two types of species in the game. So there are going to be the base species, which you unlock and then have access to in a kind of inventory, and you'll be able to place those plants or animals into the world whenever and wherever you want. And then the vast majority of other entities or other species are going to be unlocked in the game using the breeding mechanics. So these two types of species require slightly different loading and cache systems, and that's basically what I've been implementing this morning. This afternoon I finished off integrating all of the new cache stuff into the entity system, and what I'm doing now is I'm working on a spatial partitioning system for the world and for the entities. So I think that I'm going to get away with just having a simple grid system, and basically the world's going to be split up into a big grid, and then every grid square is going to have a list of all of the entities that are in that grid square. And this will be useful because a lot of the mechanics in the game are going to require an entity to interact with other nearby entities, and now instead of having to test every entity in the world, it can just test the entities in the 9 nearby grid squares. Just stopping for some dinner now, and this evening I've attempted to cook a spiced lentil soup, which is rather adventurous of me, and hopefully it's not going to taste too bad. Good morning everyone, and welcome to a rather gloomy Thursday morning here in Berlin, and today I'm just going to be working on getting ready for the Patreon release tomorrow. So I'm going to be making sure that everything in the game is nice and tidy and working, and that it's not going to randomly crash at any point. It's 10:30 now, and this morning I've been implementing that grid system that I was talking about yesterday. So you can see this sheep bouncing around the world here, and down here you can see its grid coordinates, which are updating correctly as it moves into different parts of the world. So I've just been implementing a sound component which, when added to an entity, will allow the entity to emit sound effects, and I'm just going to be using this to allow the sheep to make their bouncing noise again using the component-based architecture. So in the bouncing component now takes in the sound component and then it uses it. So whenever the sheep is bouncing upwards, it uses the sound component to play the bounce sound effect. Just had some lunch, and now I'm working on this month's release notes, which is basically just a kind of newsletter thing about Equilinox, which I send to the Patreon supporters each month. And now I'm doing a bit of reading about improving the 3D picking system that I have in the game, and reading about some new ways which I could use to improve the accuracy of the 3D mouse picker. So this afternoon I've started work on the breeding mechanic in the game, and for now I've just created a super simple reproduction system for the sheep here. So every few seconds each sheep reproduces asexually, so they basically just create a clone of themselves in the world, and as you can imagine this very quickly gets quite out of hand and you end up with quite a lot of sheep and quite a low frame rate. Just stopping for some dinner now, and today I've got some honey roasted sweet potatoes, some rice and lentils, and some baked and salted pita bread chips, and also I was feeling very brave today, so I had a go at making my own hummus. It is Friday morning, and today I have to finish off and release this week's behind the scenes devlog video. I also need to finish implementing the reproduction component for the entities, and of course this evening I need to release the game and the code to the Patreon supporters. I'm just going to try out a quick little experiment with the sheep now. So basically when a sheep reproduces, it passes on its colour to its offspring, but with a very slight random variation to that colour. So after a while we can expect to see quite a range of different colours of sheep in the world. But also every 2 or 3 seconds each sheep has a chance of dying, and I've programmed it so that that chance is slightly lower the more red the sheep is. So it's as if there's a predator going round that can't see the colour red very well, so the more red a sheep is, the better chance it has of surviving. So I'm going to start off with a few grey sheep in the middle here, and I'm just going to leave it running for a while, and I think that what we might see happening is that the sheep species will start to evolve to become more red, so that they're better at surviving. So I'm just going to leave this running and we will see what happens. So it's been running for about a minute now, and we're starting to see quite a big range of different colours of sheep in the game, and that's of course because of the slight random variation of colour every time a sheep reproduces, and that starts to build up over a few generations. But they're not looking particularly red at the moment. 2 minutes in and we're definitely starting to see a slight reddish tinge to the overall colour of the sheep. There are definitely more pinks and oranges rather than blues and greens and yellows, so I think we're already starting to see a bit of evolution taking place. So after 3 minutes you can definitely start to see the evolution towards the red sheep. But interestingly, different areas seem to have different coloured sheep. So over here we've definitely got some more orangey colours, whereas if we move over to the right there are some more deeper pinks, and down on this side of the mountain you can see that these sheep are a more lighter pink colour. So we've got different coloured sheep evolving in different areas here. It's been running for 4 minutes now and the colour separation is becoming even more apparent. So in the middle we've got those very pink sheep, then on the left here we've got some very yellowy looking sheep and a couple of very orange sheep in the background there, and down here we seem to have a little family of very dark pink sheep over here. So really interestingly, after about 6 minutes it looks like the population is pretty much splitting into 2 separate species of sheep. So over here on the mountain we've got the reddy orange species, and then down here we've got the pink species, and it looks like the reddy orange species with their superior colour genes seem to be, well, you can see very quickly getting a lot bigger, and the pink species has suddenly very quickly almost completely died out. It's been running for 7 minutes now, and as you can see that orange species of sheep has now become a lot more red. So after 9 minutes it looks like the evolution process has pretty much come to an end now, and as you can see the sheep are now very red, and because of that the death rates have gone down quite a lot and the population is clearly booming, which is not too good for the frame rate. As you can see it's dropped down to about 5, and the frame rate has now dropped to about 2, so I think I'm going to stop this, but really interesting to see the evolution take place there. It is coming up to 12:30 now, and I really should be doing some editing or something, but I just can't stop messing around with the evolution stuff in Equilinox. So what I'm trying now is, on one half of the world I'm doing the same as before. I'm simulating the predator that can't see the colour red very well, so the more red a sheep is, the more chance it has of surviving. But on the other half of the world I'm simulating having predators which can't see the colour green very well. So again, I'm going to start with a load of grey sheep in the middle, and I'll leave it running for a while and see what happens. So after running the program for 10 minutes, you can see that the sheep have basically evolved into 2 completely different species. So there's the red species and then there's the green species, and each species has evolved to be perfectly suited to surviving in its specific environment. Just stopping for some lunch now, and for the rest of the day I'm just going to be editing together this behind the scenes devlog video and sending the stuff to the Patreon supporters. So for this week that's going to be it. Next time I'm going to be working on the proper breeding system, and yeah, thank you guys very much for watching this video. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you all next time.